Welcome, everyone. This is Caroline, and today I'm talking with Leah in the next installment of our Career Change Success Stories, where we pull back the curtain on the coaching journey and hopefully give you some ideas about the options that are available to you as you walk your own path to career happiness and fulfillment. I'm going to hand over to you, Leah. And Leah, if you don't mind sharing with folks, tell us a little bit about what was going on in your career when we first started working together, and where are you now in your career?
Thanks, Caroline, so much for inviting me to do this with you. So when I first started my coaching time with you, I was working as a graphic designer in a large, well-known Silicon Valley tech company. I had been working as a designer for about 11 years. I lived in New York City. I lived in San Francisco. I live in California now, but I had worked in all kinds of different agencies in a lot of different capacities as a designer and an art director. And I always felt like something was missing, like it just something wasn't right. And I could never quite put my finger on it. And as we went through the process of coaching, and where I am now is that you really helped me realize that the artist part of me was a huge part that I wasn't really listening to or taking as seriously as I could. And so I'm currently in the process of transitioning to being a full-time practicing artist and building out my home studio and kind of learning how to do it from scratch. And it's been a really incredible transformation.
So part of the way that you are helping yourself transition from this graphic design work from this big tech company to life as a professional artist is something that you are enrolling yourself in, which is called Leah School. So if you don't mind sharing your conception of Leah School and whatever you want to say about it.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. So Leah School kind of emerged as a real breakthrough moment towards the end of our coaching time together. Um, Leah School is just sort of a silly, funny name that I came up with as a way to help myself not take it so seriously, as a way to really start playing and embracing this sort of new mindset of being an artist. And it really came out of, what do I need to know? What do I need to learn? So from a very sort of self-empowering place, as I thought about how I would sort of become the artist that I want to be, which of course is a much larger journey than just like, okay, yesterday I was not an artist, today I'm an artist. But as I really started to think about what that meant, I did realize that there was going to need to be some sort of structure around it. And so I thought about grad school. I talked to a couple of their artists and ultimately realized that I knew what I wanted to learn. And as soon as I got it out, and as soon as I made that Google document that I just like in a flash called Leah School, it just all came completely pouring out, which I now recognize as kind of a sign that it's the right path, because it just felt like it was coming from a place that was so intrinsically who I am and what I desire. And so Leah School starts October 6th, which is, people are going to be watching this not in the current moment, so that's 4 days from now. And so I've been gearing up to really start painting every day. I've been taking a lot of sort of online business classes. I've been doing a lot of prep for Leah School, which just involves, like I said, kind of going through this list of actions and goals that I've crafted for myself, one of which is, and the biggest of which is, to create a remarkable body of work. And so how Leah School works is that there are different components that will help me get there. Some of them are art business related, some are, theory and the understanding of the contemporary art market and my place in it. And some of it is just pure exploration and practice. So it's a kind of a combination of these three different things coming together that I see as very important to an artist's career.
I know I said this to you at the time when you first shared Leah School with me, but for the benefit of the people watching this, when Leah sent over this conception of Leah School, it was written with such whimsy and lightness and clarity. And like you said, you just knew. And I just love this idea for you. I love the fact, again, just even in the transition of Leah School, like you could have enrolled in a, program out there that already existed. And I love the fact that even in your conception of what is the right transition, you really gave yourself creative license to create the right mix of business and creative and, you know, just time creating your remarkable body of work that you might not have gotten from a traditional rigid program. And so I love that. I'm so excited. We'll have to do another call after you've graduated from Leah School. And I hope other people are, or I can imagine other people are going to probably want to join. So that's where we are now. So you're on the cusp of entering Leah School. So if you don't mind just sharing, like, what are some of the big lessons learned as this idea unfolded of whether it's Leah School or just leaving graphic design, what some of those lessons are?
Oh man, there were so many, and you know, honestly, that's such a big part of the work together, as part of coaching. Is I felt like I learned a new lesson every week. So it's really hard to boil it down into just a few. But I think that one of the biggest things that I realized that I learned was that there were things that weren't working for me. And when we first started working together, I couldn't put my finger on exactly what they were. And actually, within the first couple of weeks, it became very clear that I didn't want to be commuting. I'd been commuting for 11 years, like I said, both in New York and in the Bay Area, and it was horrible. And you know, I would look around at other people commuting, and I would be like, "Yep, we're all in this together. This is just what we have to do. This is our lives." And this huge mindset shift was, "Oh, I don't have to do that. It's not working for me." And I know it sounds kind of simplistic, but I think that was really the first big one that made me see, okay, not working for me, destroying me physically, mentally, emotionally. How can I not do that anymore? The other thing I think that was related to that I learned I could shift was that I don't like office culture. And I have been working in offices for, like I said, 11 years. Like, duh, how did I not realize that I don't like office culture? Oh, now looking back, it seems so clear. Like, yes, those are the things that were really not benefiting me because I'm an artist and I need to have my alone time working in my studio. And not to say that I don't love also collaborating with others, but where I was physically going every day, and the way I was interacting with people, even though I was behind a screen on my computer, just being in the environment of open offices was so difficult for me to get my work done. And I've now realized that I work much better. I'm more efficient. I'm happier, if I'm working from home. So I do continue to do small design jobs to support Leah School, um, and and I work from home now. And I've honestly been wanting to do that for a really long time, but was so scared that I would lose all my clients and lose my jobs and not have any clients, you know. And what I realized is that, like, those voices, those fear-based voices, are not real. So this fear of not having any more design jobs if I take a leap, that was a huge mindset shift as well. And I'm not saying that, like, you know, once I took a leap, all of a sudden everything fell into place, but there were definitely some things that really started to feel like they fell in place. I had a great, you know, freelance design project that I could manage easily, sort of on a part-time, flexible schedule alongside the beginnings of Leah School, over the last couple of months. And I think I was tending to, like, my old mindset was thinking, you know, it's not going to work out. And my new mindset is a bit more of like, what if it does work out? Like, how amazing would that be if it really does work out? And so just a really simple shift from like a negativity bias to a positivity bias. I mean, I am a self-admitted pessimist, and I have been, you know, I'm an existentialist. And so having a sense of optimism about the future and about my career is, you know, the mega shift.
Oh, that's huge. That's huge. You mentioned so many interesting things. One of the things I think is super cool, and if you don't mind sharing a little bit more about it, the idea that you haven't abandoned design altogether. And so if you don't mind sharing, how, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we've talked before this, where you said that, you're being more selective about what design projects you take. And like you said, if there are elements around it, like a commute or a certain way of working, it's not just about the work. Sometimes it's the ancillary stuff around it. So maybe if you can just share how you decide, if there are elements that you want to keep from this former life, how you make that decision as to what kind of fits into your new life as Leah the artist.
Mm. Well, there are a couple of things. One is that I hope to work mostly with clients that I've worked with in the past, at least for the time being. Basically, trying to eliminate as many curveballs as possible. And so, if I work with people that I've already worked with, it's just a bit smoother. And that's not to say that I won't take new clients in the future. But what I realized is that I do have more control over who I work with than I thought. Again, another kind of like fear-based voice would say, take whatever you can get. All work is good work. And confident voice says, you can choose who you want to work with, at least for the time being. So there's a lot more of sort of living in the present moment. Um, I never thought about, I've been meditating for a long time, so my attachment to this idea of the present moment is pretty strong. Attachment is probably the wrong word, but interest in living in the present moment is pretty strong. And so that itself does, I think, also relate to decision making, because if I am making decisions from this present moment, then I'm able to really sense, how does it feel? Like, how does it feel in my body? Do I get constricted? Do I get tight? Or do I feel excited? Maybe I feel neutral? Maybe neutral's not the worst feeling, because neutral means I can say yes and it'll be good, and I can say no and that's okay too. So really getting that sort of sense of, whether something feels good in the moment, and then just kind of going with it. I definitely have struggled with the sort of trusting my gut feeling. It's a lot. I think it's a lot harder than people make it seem to trust your gut. I don't know if anybody else experiences this, but the whole like trust your gut and everything will work out. Like, what does that even mean? Like, maybe I ate something weird for breakfast and my gut isn't feeling up to it today. I don't know. Like, is it a voice? Is it I don't know. It could be all of those things. But I think for me, what it comes down to is like, on the one hand, there's the feeling, and on the other hand, there's actually a really strategic part of it, where in our work together, kind of after sorting through all this stuff and deciding that being an artist is my big shiny goal right now, which was not the goal when I first started coaching, but it is now, then does the decision that I'm about to make align with that goal? And if the answer is yes, if the answer is this client understands where I'm at, they understand that I am working part-time, maybe there's even a little bit more transparency, and I can tell them, I work on design this many hours per week, and the other part of the week I'm an artist. That's actually been really cool, because some of my clients have actually become interested in my art, which, and some haven't, which is fine too. It's fine. Either way, it's fine. I'm just trying to be more open-minded, that it's not just, A or B, but that this sense of openness and possibility can bring about things that I can't even anticipate, and maybe don't even, haven't even thought of.
Yes, I love that so much. And you had mentioned before in our coaching, and then even kind of before this call, this idea of being open to the idea that you're creating. You said it much more beautifully than I'm going to say it, but being open to the idea that you're creating your career and life every single day. And you kind of came in wanting this like 5-year plan on paper, and it really morphed into something much more beautiful and I think powerful, which is living every day the way you wanted to live, which that's my way of saying it. But share some more about that, because that to me is a huge shift between having this kind of really formal thing and having this idea. We talked a lot in our coaching about like the destination. When am I going to get there? When am I going to get to the place where all of this stuff magically appears and is fixed. And the way I hear you talking right now is so different, and um, almost a real embracing of the how things shift and evolve, and being really open to that. But again, I want to hear your thoughts.
No, I actually think that you said it in a really accurate way to how I also feel about it. I mean, like you said, that open-mindedness has been so key, um, and really kind of going with the flow. I think after working 10 years with under deadlines, my whole life was about deadlines, meeting deadlines, and so thinking that everything has to be structured and organized and planned, was something actually that was kind of appealing to me, because I thought that that was how I would get to, whatever this brass ring that I thought I was looking for was. Is like, oh, if I just have someone help me like outline the steps and then follow those steps, I will get there. Because I'm, naturally like a pretty like spontaneous person. I'm, feel like doing that, so I go do that, and then all of a sudden 3 hours later I'm doing something else. And so I thought, okay, I need help with this order to things, right? Um, and I just, after coaching, I'm just like, why would I ever want to make myself do something that it doesn't feel inherently like the way that I want to do it? It doesn't really make sense to force myself to like fit into this way of doing things. And so I think that is actually kind of where Leah School came from, and where any other idea, a good idea, comes from. It comes from a place of like creativity and freedom, and all these words that we tend to throw around, especially in like a business context, right? Which then they kind of become a little bit empty because they are a little bit at odds with each other. And I think that was one thing that was really a place I was struggling with design. Working in like a quote unquote creative career on a creative team, you're still always beholden to the business goals. And I totally understand that. And I do actually still see a lot of value in that. But for me, I've decided that I have to make a pretty strict division between my personal creativity and how I approach it, and my design creativity and how I approach it. And so I'm actually moving more and more design wise into slightly more structured things, like word marks or logos or presentations, things that are very like sort of discrete tasks that I can just, really execute that one thing beautifully. And then my creative practice is really so much about the exploration. That's not to say that the exploration doesn't also come into the design phase, because there is always a place for exploration, but you always have to cut it off at a certain point so that then you can get to the actual finished product. And with art, you have to do that too. And I'm sort of just freewheeling a little bit here, but I think it kind of, again, goes back to this area, which is so fascinating to me, which is like, where do you need structure? And then where do you need to just let things kind of explore? And I think ultimately, I personally need both. And that's really something I'm working through right now. And something that is weirdly also a part of Leah School, which is like, where does the calendar fit into this? Where do deadlines fit into this? Because of course you still need those things. And I look to my experience in graphic design and as part of bigger teams with big deliverables and milestones, to maybe translate some of that stuff into the art practice so that there is a tangible outcome. And so that's important. So yeah, again, it's just really about learning, sort of like mining my own knowledge. I think that came up a lot in coaching, is like, so much more than you think you know. And that actually allows me to trust myself in a way, which is another theme I think that came up in coaching, is this idea of trust. So it really is all interconnected.
Yeah, and I hear so much in what you've been saying this whole conversation. Part of it is the what. What are you focusing on? What is the work that you most enjoy, whether it's art or design? And a lot of what you're talking about is the how you engage with the work. Where does the structure, where do we let ourselves flow? And you sound, we're talking about all this expansiveness and being open, and at the same time, you sound so clear and have such a clear perspective and philosophy on how you approach it. And so I love hearing that. I can't wait to hear how it evolves. And there's one thing that you said a while ago that I did want to just come back to, because I think it's just such a great example of incorporating those elements of design and not feeling like you need to abandon design entirely. You said so many times in our coaching together, and I think this is what caused that tension of like, should I stay or should I go, is that when you could do design a certain way or certain elements of design you really, really enjoyed. And so the idea, which I think a lot of people struggle with this, the idea of giving up those elements entirely that we already like to go do something else, that's a hard ask. And so I love the fact that you are keeping those things and are re-engaging, aligning them. I think, and I've lost the way you said it, but kind of like using your artist self as, here's the thing I'm going for. I'm Leah, the artist. And how do I take these elements of design and do them in a way that serves this bigger vision? And I think that's so smart. And it just even feels good in my body when you say those things, because you can hear that it's not just, I think we tend to look at work as this black or white, like either I like this or I don't. And so much can be about, I'm just going to do it in a different way. I'm not, once I take out the commute, once I take out the office environment, I can really engage with the same thing so much differently. And this is what I think the beauty of a coaching space, where we can kind of pull this apart and really understand, is it really about throwing away design wholesale, or is there's some middle ground here? And so I love everything you're saying. So anything else, any other big lessons learned? You've dropped so many gold nuggets. It's been amazing. But anything else that you want to also share that you think will be helpful for people, especially creatives, or especially someone watching this who's thinking about making what feels like a big departure from what they're currently doing?
Yeah, it's a bit of a riff on what you were just talking about. This idea of labeling myself. I realized about halfway through our coaching that as soon as I put on the label, oh, I am a graphic designer, or the label artist, it just was really getting in the way, because I was sort of focusing on, oh, what am I going to put on my LinkedIn profile now? Or how do I write my Instagram bio or whatever? And I'm not saying those things aren't important, because, they are in some cases. But it was a bit of a cart before the horse. And I'm finding that's pretty true with everything right now, too. Even as I engage the art side of everything, I want it so badly. And I want it to be successful. And I want those, external validations of success. I think we all do in some way, whether we want to admit it to ourselves or not. And there's a part of me that is learning how to free myself, both from what I think the expectations of that other people have on me are, and the expectations that I have of myself. So having a beautifully curated LinkedIn profile with lots of recommendations and, accolades and stuff like that, I kind of already have that for the design world, and I'm grateful for it. But is that really what I need to be focusing on for art? Probably not. So really kind of trying to think through, what are the places that I want to exist in the world without having to, kind of fit some kind of mold. And maybe eventually I'll change my LinkedIn profile to say artist, but for right now, I'm just not worried about that. So putting my energy now towards things that actually matter to me has been really beneficial. And I actually have to remind myself every day of that. So I have sort of a wall of reminders, and I have check-ins with friends, and I'm trying to surround myself with more like mentor type people, and reaching out to people in the arts, and just having conversations where I can, in a way to remind myself that this is a journey, and it's going to take a while, and I'm in it for the long arc. And if I need to change, if I need to adapt, if I need to adjust, if I need to call myself something else next week, like, that is totally fine. Like, it doesn't really matter. And I think that the biggest thing that matters for me anyway right now is just making the work, and feeling that freedom. And it does take reminders that that's why, because I think we live in a world where we are supposed to crave that external validation and have, 10,000 Instagram followers and all that kind of stuff. And like, that's just icing on the cake, right? But right now I'm trying to figure out how to bake the freaking cake.
Love it. Love it. So many great things there. I love what you said about labels, because it's one thing. I think, we all, or a lot of us, bristle when other people try to put us in a box. But I think what you articulated there is, so often we put our own selves in a box. We feel like we have to. And I love that you are really shedding that in so many senses of the word. And I love the example that you gave before about, as you work with these, very curated design projects, they're now engaging with your artwork. And so much beautiful opportunities emerge when we shed those labels. And so I love that. That's amazing. So this has been awesome. I really appreciate your time. I really want to do another one of these, maybe when we're halfway through Leah School, and definitely once you've graduated. And so if people want to find you, find your work, where can they go? I'll include the links as well, but if you just want to give a shout out to where they can find your stuff, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, it's all a work in progress. But some of my artwork can be found on Instagram currently. So my handle is just at Leah Karamsky, which, like you said, will be a link. I'm also in the process of building a website, which will be finished soon. Two websites, one for my own artwork, and one for a collaborative project I'm working on with my husband, who's also an artist. So that one is called Deep Time Press. Crossing my fingers, all this stuff will be out in the world soon. It takes a village of two to do all these things. And I also have a design website, so that's just leahkaramsky.com. So all of the things.
Yes, all the things in the unique, perfect package that's aligned with you. So thank you so much for sharing. I hope people watching this are just really sparked and inspired by all of these great ideas, and hopefully empowered to start pursuing what their own specific no label definition looks like for them. I'll include all of the links below. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Leah, for doing this, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Caroline.